Hello everybody, welcome back to the James Lawrence Allcott channel. We're going to be breaking down Chelsea versus Arsenal, which was another cracking game at the bridge between these two. Another 2-2. I know there's been a few over the years. Let's get into it. 10 minutes breaking down this game, which was action-packed. So let's talk context. It's been a weird season for those teams apart from, or even Man City as well. But you've got Man United, Spurs, Arsenal and Chelsea all struggling to find their feet over the season, all struggling to find that consistency. And you saw that with Chelsea and Arsenal in the last few games. Arteta has joined Arsenal. He's starting to impact them. And you wanted to see what he could do in a game like this. A tough game away from home against a Chelsea team that they haven't beaten away in ages. So it was a massive test for them. So when it comes to the top line, it's got to be about David Luiz getting sent off against his old team, going back to Stamford Bridge after leaving, of course, and he gets himself sent off after 25 minutes. That changed the whole structure of the game, but Arsenal dug in and got themselves a draw, only having 2 shots in the game. Massive questions for Chelsea now. Can they break teams down? It looks like they can't when it's a low block. Let's get into that. So in terms of the tactics and the lineups for these two teams, the big 2 talking points for me were one, Mustafi being the centre-back for Arsenal in this game. He hasn't started a Premier League game, so that was a big call for them to make. Obviously, David Luiz, which we'll get onto in a second. And for Chelsea, the big loss for me when it comes to Chelsea is no Reece James. I think he's such an exciting player for Chelsea, and he was a doubt going into the game, didn't play. Azpilicueta played on that right side, and the breaking down of teams has been a big question mark when it comes to Chelsea. Saw that in the Newcastle game, they weren't able to do it. They started the game really well. First 20 minutes, I had a look at the stats after 20 minutes. They'd had 8 corners already. They were in control of the game. The bulk of the game was being played in the Arsenal final third, and it looked like a matter of time. They're working down the right-hand side a lot with Cho. Cho was going at Saka. You can understand why Lampard looked to get them to do that. But then the big moment happens and it changes the entire game. David Luiz gets sent off. Can he do better there? I wonder why he can't hook his leg round instead of going straight at Abraham. Obviously, he's trying to stop him before he can shoot. But really, just pushing him is not going to get the job done. As a defensive-minded player myself, I used to always try and get that leg round. You're better off doing that because he's obviously about to have his shot. So I thought that was a slightly strange decision. Maybe I'm being a little bit unfair with that one, but it was a matter of time, really. You've also got to talk about the unforced errors that come with Arsenal and that centre-back pairing. It's something that you expect to happen at some point where they're going to let you down. And Mustafi, unfortunately, did on this occasion. And it was David Luiz who paid the price. Jorginho does what Jorginho does when it comes to a penalty. They've scored the goal. And that's when it actually got interesting, I feel, from a tactical point of view. Because Arsenal seemed more comfortable against 11 men when they've got 10 than Chelsea did when they were playing against 10 men. The whole sort of life of the game was sucked out of it a little bit, and they basically got themselves to half-time pretty comfortably. Xhaka went and played centre-back, which was surprising. I was waiting for Holding to come on. He only came on in the last 15 minutes, I think it was. But Xhaka played centre-back, which is a brave call from Arteta when, if they go on to lose 4-0 and you've got Xhaka and Mustafi as your 2 centre-backs, then the knives are going to be out. They're going to be coming for Arteta because that is a brave decision to make. I think the big reason why they played Xhaka at the back was to have some kind of option in terms of playing the ball out. You'd have someone who'd have to deal with a press. A centre midfielder is going to be a bit more comfortable than a centre-back in that position. And also, I think with Lacazette up top and the sort of congested midfield area in front of him, in terms of getting the ball to him, he's not got that height. They weren't winning many aerial duels as well. It's not like you've got Tammy Abraham down that end who you can play the ball long to, hit his chest and then get the team up. So they had to play around Chelsea a little bit. So they left Pepe as far forward as possible so they could counter-attack, and generally Lacazette actually was just looking to help out. When it came to Chelsea, at half-time, I thought it was pretty obvious. If you look at the heat maps of the game, you can see that sort of that midfield area in between the lines was where they weren't really getting any joy at all. And so the ball's going down the sides, which suited Arsenal. And if those crosses came in, they were happy to deal with Abraham. Now, Abraham is such an asset for Chelsea because he can run in behind, but he can also be that big target man. But as you'll see from the stats here, I think a big problem is the amount of crosses that are going into them. But at halftime, the big thing for me was, is it time for Ross Barkley? Is it time for Mason Mount? Because it was in those central areas that they weren't getting any joy. And when you've got 10 men, it's about stretching them and finding those pockets and finding those overloads. 63 minutes comes, and it was what Arsenal were hoping for. They had to dig in, they needed to hold on, and they needed to do something on the counter-attack. Martinelli, who barely touched the ball, the header comes out and he's on a counter-attack, and look, you have to wait for these little freak moments to happen, and then you got to take your chance, and that's what Martinelli did. Incredible composure to keep going forward and run at pace, get to one-on-one and slot it home. Kante, look, you know, he is the last man for a reason, because generally you're not going to get past him, but it was just one of those things. He slipped over. Martinelli took his chance. Lampard made the changes that I think a lot of people were probably screaming for. I think Ross Barkley had a good impact when he came on against Newcastle, so they looked to get him involved because he's got that kind of that third man runner style that can allow you to sort of dislodge that Arsenal side. And he also brought on Mount. A lot of the play for Chelsea was down that left-hand side with Willian, and so to allow Willian that little bit more space to try and do something, Mount went over to that left-hand side and worked in that pocket of space. It worked to a point, but Arsenal was so resolute. Mustafi, who, you know, made that big mistake, after that was superb. Xhaka did his job as well, and I've got to say both the fullbacks were brilliant. Let's talk about the key stats in this game, and I think shots is a fair one to start on. 19 shots for Chelsea, only 2 shots for Arsenal. One of those, of course, though, was from Hector Bellerin with his left foot, curling it in. How many times has a right-back scored at Stamford Bridge? Lee Dixon, Silvinho, now Hector Bellerin joins that list. The other one for me is the crosses and the corner kick. 27% of the crosses going in for Tammy Abraham. Makes you feel like there's a sort of lack of ideas there, or an inability to stretch the play, or an inability to sort of have a quick fire pattern of play that's going to work in overloads down the left-hand side or the right-hand side or through the middle, because Chelsea tried all of them, but they put in a hell of a lot of crosses. And Abraham had a few chances. He got his head on it, and I understand utilising that, but I still think there's enough quality there. I think they're missing Mount being at his best. He was so important to them when they were playing well, and I think it's because of his intelligence in between the lines and getting on the ball and his movement. So I think the sooner he gets back to his best, the better. Corner kicks as well. That's where that second goal came for Chelsea, but they had 17 corner kicks, and I think I can remember a Christensen chance and the goal, which came from a short corner. But really, when you've got that many opportunities, I think the fact that you're winning that many corners, it also shows that you're going down the flanks, which is fine, but the end product wasn't there for them. And I think that's a big reason why they're struggling with teams that play that low block, because they can't break them down. And the way you're going to break down those teams is by stretching the entire pitch, but you've also got to have guys in between, and that's what Man City do so well. Because if teams are going to sit back like that, you either need rotation of players so that it dislodges defenses and they don't know who to mark and there's that moment of hesitancy, or you need to stretch out wide like Man City do and have those players in between, which I think Chelsea do have. But it's just not working at the moment, and they're relying on trying to get crosses in, early crosses in. I mean, Callum Hudson-Odoi had a good game for me and got in those early crosses at times. Batshuayi's got a great chance there right at the end when they look to play that second striker. But Chelsea need to be able to mix it up a lot better and with a lot more fluency. Man of the match, it's got to be Saka for me. At left back, I thought he was brilliant. I thought he was also able to dribble and progress the ball, which was a big thing for Arsenal at times, just to give yourself a breather. When you go to 10 men, you need dribblers on the pitch to get you out of trouble for a little bit, just to give you that chance. And as someone who's actually naturally a winger, for him to be as composed and to deal with Callum Hudson-Odoi, that was a real battle down that left-hand side. But for him to also get up the pitch and help the team out with the ball, I thought he was brilliant. He was definitely my man of the match. Let me know who yours is in the comments below and we can have a chat about it. I think I got it wrong last time. Liverpool versus Spurs. I went with Firmino, and actually Wijnaldum was a great shout, which you guys said. So get your shouts for man of the match in the comments below. Question and answers then, I think it's pretty obvious. Chelsea, it's a story that's rumbling on, and for good reason. Played against 10 men for 65 minutes and they weren't able to win the game. Yes, there's only 2 shots from Arsenal, but there's bigger problems there, because there weren't enough big chances for Chelsea in this game. You saw it against Newcastle as well. You've seen it against the likes of Bournemouth and Southampton. That needs to change. The one thing I would say with Chelsea is that That's something that you saw with Liverpool a couple of years ago. I think there's real potential with this Chelsea team, and they're only going to get better, the bulk of that team. So you've got to be patient if you're a Chelsea fan, but you can be frustrated as well, because if you're playing Arsenal in a London derby and you're playing against 10 men for that long, then you've got to be annoyed. Answers for Arsenal, they've got character. They showed grit. I think if you're an Arsenal fan, you've got to be delighted with that. There's no doubt that the quality of that team needs to improve a hell of a lot. And they've had their backs to the walls for the entirety of this game, enforced after 25 minutes. But the first 20 minutes, they weren't really doing anything otherwise. But they hung in there. They did hang in there. And that is a good sign for Arteta and for Arsenal fans. So let me know what you think about this breakdown of the 2-2 between Chelsea and Arsenal. If you're enjoying this content, then subscribe to the channel. Check out my spinning video, 30 days spinning. It was crazy, and the video is decent, so go check that out. And I'll see you soon. This is going to be harder than I thought.
Today wasn't as bad. Felt better.
Get on with it.
I'm giving it my best. This is going to hurt a lot more than I thought.
The battle was won yesterday. Wind your neck in. I sweated a strangely large amount in that.
That was concerning.
So hard.
I did just about make it.
Stop messing about. Get on with it.